Well, hey everybody, I'm Jan Erickson from Stepping Aside, and welcome to As Above, So Below, a rune and tarot divination for Monday, the first day of May, 2023. Well, happy Beltana or Beltane, however you wish to pronounce it. Beltane is a fire festival. It celebrates fertility, the return of the light, the coming. It's sort of, I don't think exactly halfway between the spring equinox and the summer solstice, but kinda. But basically, it's just the return of fertility and growth and abundance. And generally speaking, there's usually a bonfire and things like that. If you want to light one, you don't have to. But anyway, you can just use one of those fire pits if you want to. Those are kind of fun. They still make me nervous, but they're fun. So maybe light a fire in a big cauldron or something. So you've got the lid, you can, if it gets out of control or something. Oh, goodness. Well, I hope everyone had a good weekend. I was out. My voice is a mess here today because we have really high pollen right now. The juniper, in fact, juniper is so high it doesn't even get mentioned. It's just you touch it and the yellow stuff comes off, the gold stuff comes off, the pollen comes off. It's just, and then the sinuses fill up. It's just awful. But anyway, we'll see how we do here today. My tea is still a little bit too hot to drink. We'll put that over there, and let's go ahead and let's draw a rune from the Elder Futhark bag for the above side of things, or the higher self side of things. We'll let the runes fall through my fingers till one is left. Oh, come on. I'll get like two of them in there, and one won't drop out. Well, here we have Perthro. Perthro's about fate. It's the cup from which runes are cast or dice are tossed. But it's really about your fate and who controls that. I think that higher awareness, when you allow judgment to stay out of things and you try to just understand what's going on, based on, if it's about people, if people are involved, what's that person's perception, what's that person's perception, all of that, trying to understand everything about a situation makes determining your own choices and your own fate, in other words, I think a lot easier than being in that reactive mode where you narrow everything down to one reaction to something. Well, what if you don't have the whole picture? I mean, we've all been there where we've jumped to a conclusion or whatever. But Perthro is an interesting rune. It's about it turned this way. It's open to birth, open to death. This is also, or this would be a cauldron basically, and this would represent the womb in a way. But you can see directionality matters with Perthro, but it's about synchronicity and chance, the well of word. It's just the unknown factor in your life, and who determines that is because there's times when circumstances will determine that for you. But wherever you can choose your own reaction to it, then you determine what your fate really is. So maybe we could liken fate with reaction, maybe. I don't know. Or non-reaction, judgment versus non-judgment. See where that takes you. Let's take a look at the below side with the Geomancy runes. We'll put them in order. Here we have Pur. Now, Pur and Puella, or Puea, are the little boy and little girl runes. Pur is about, I raised two boys. If you've raised boys, I can see the difference between my grandsons and my granddaughter, but I never had any girls. So other than my own awareness of what it is to be female and little, I was a bit of a Puella. I could focus when I needed to, but otherwise I'm here, there, and everywhere, and I'm very curious, and I want to know everything about everything. And so I might be walking along and I see something and I stop and I go look at it. And my husband is like, where'd she go? And so that's kind of a scattered, it's a positive energy with Puella. With Pur, though, Pur is little boy energy. So scattered little boy energy. And it looks like this. Puella would be like this, and Pur is like this. And so with Pur, we really look at a lack of impulse control. And on the as above, so below framework of this, who's going to control your impulses here? Are you going to do that? Is your higher awareness going to do that? The adult side of self versus the child side of self, who just wants to go and look and do and experience, and without any mindfulness as to what time of day it is. It's like, are you going to come home for dinner? They get caught up and in that lack of impulse control. And so I think if you let that determine the Perthrow energy in your life, then you're always going to be in that very narrow focus of what you're thinking about and you're doing without any understanding of how that impacts other people. And so it's a lack of impulse control controlling your fate today. And so obviously you're going to have to decide whether or not you feel comfortable with that or not. Personally, I don't, but I think a lack of impulse control can cause all kinds of issues for people. But and I think we've seen that in our lives, even with ourselves, where you impulse buy and it's like, uh-oh, I probably shouldn't have done that, It's like, oh, I guess I didn't realize that I didn't have enough to pay that. Everybody's been in that position, where you really have to think about how you handle your money or your time or what have you. So again, who controls your fate? Is it a lack of impulse control today? Oops, don't drop the cards on the floor. Well, I'm having trouble shuffling. I think that's probably enough. I've done some before I started, as always. Let's put that over there. Let's cut the deck. Take the lower half. Okay, so if we're talking about internal stuff, and I think I'm going to start out that way. I don't know that I'm going to end up there, but I think I'm going to start out that way. We have, I'm going to go ahead right now and shift this around. Again, I like to have a pattern. And here I have the Magician and the Ace of Pentacles, both one energies. And then I have the Two of Cups, and I'm putting that in the center. So what I did is I started out with that. When I drew the cards, it was the Two of Cups first, and then the Magician. But I think I'm going to put the Magician on the other side of that. So we have a 1-2-1 pattern here. And the reason I want to do that is because both of the one cards, whether you're talking about the Magician or the Ace of Pentacles, you're talking about the genesis of something new. And so I think that healing, if you want to look at healing the polarity within with the Two of Cups, we could look at it that way maybe. But let's start with the Magician. Here we have the Magician standing in this table with all of his tools, which also corresponds to the four suits of the tarot, are right there on the table in front of him. Cups, pentacles, swords, and wands. But it also represents elements. And so pentacles represents the earth element, cups, the water element, swords, the air element, and wands, the fire element. And so when you're looking at from the initial three cards of the major arcana, this is a major arcana card. You're starting with the Fool, then you move to the Magician, and then the High Priestess. This is basically the beginning of the soul's journey into form. The Fool takes the leap of faith off that cliff into physical reality, with trusting the moment, trusting the process. He's got everything he needs or she needs. It's basically an androgynous person. And then the Magician is the one who creates the body and the experience and the world. And then the High Priestess is about the subconscious. And so you've got the physical and the non-physical reality of the individual with that's created by both the magician and the high priestess. And from there, the next card is the empress, and she gives birth to creation, followed by her consort, the emperor. And so which is an interesting order if you think about it. You would think the Lover's card would be before them, but it's not. It's the Empress. But at this point, this is the stage where if we are exploring our lack of impulse control, or how our lack of impulse control controls our reality, basically, or our fate with Perthro, if we look at it that way, can we manifest something else? Once we understand that overall picture of what that's truly, of how that truly impacts our lives and the negative way it can impact our lives. I mean, sometimes a lack of impulse control can lead you to some discoveries and new opportunities, can't it? But not always. And most of the time, it's iffy at best. And so, but with the magician, you see him in his as above, so below stance. One arm is up, the other is below. He's holding what appears to be either a scroll or a wand. It doesn't look, though, like the wand he has here. Up to spirit, or up to heaven. And the other hand, his receptive hand, his left hand, is pointing down to the earth, or to physical matter. You see all the purity around him with the roses and the lilies down here at the bottom. You see all of that, all the abundance. And here on Beltane, on that day, on May Day, we have lots of new opportunities that could happen. We could say fertility can take a lot of forms, really. And if you can control your lack of impulse control, you control the impulsivity, then maybe you control a little more about what the future holds for yourself, instead of allowing just the ego to run amok and decide that for you. But in doing so, and this is another way to read this card. Now here we see the masculine side of self, if you will, taking a step forward to the feminine side of self. You see he's reaching forward with one hand, with his right hand. He's holding a chalice in his left hand. She's holding the chalice in her right, with her own strength of compassion and love, and his strength of initiation to initiate the process. And in between, you see the caduceus, and above the caduceus, you see a winged, a lion's head that sprouted wings, basically. The strength, the heal, the polarity within. You can look at this card this way too, is also about decisions. So it's about love, balance, harmony, reciprocity. But being able to step outside your usual comfort zone here with your home. You see the dual line of demarcation. Whenever you see this, and this is how I interpret it, I don't know if other tarot readers interpret it this way, but I do. It just hit me one day that there's an element of, here's where I am now, and there's where I want to be, or this is now, this is then, or this is now and this is the future. Something like that. Some difference in terms of presence, basically. And here they've stepped away from their home and their peace and their security, where that's supposed to be, but maybe it hasn't been. And now they've stepped away from it so that they can have some kind of a conversation here, from their heart, basically. Because cups is about the water element, and that's emotions, that's love, that's harmony, that's peace, that's balance. And so, but in terms of, if this is an inner journey for you today, and it could be an external one, where you've had some lack of impulse control, maybe he did, and now he's saying, I'm sorry, it could be something like that. It could be a relationship issue, where you have to rethink how you see yourself. And obviously, if your behavior is causing a problem in the relationship, then you need to look at that and understand that, you can't just typically when you have somebody in a situation like that, they're finding all kinds of excuses for why they behaved the way they did, why they made the choices they did. And they're really, it's never going to be okay with their partner. I mean, let's face it. The partner might go, oh, okay, whatever. But inside, I don't buy that. I think that when you start hearing the excuses from a partner, that's a problem. So maybe some of this has to do with that. But if not, if this is purely an internal thing where you're exploring your own issues and one of them is impulsivity, then and the effect that has on the outcome of various aspects of your life, well, again, manifesting from a higher perspective with the magician, something new, letting that, whatever that is inside, that allows you to make those choices, to take better control over the whole thing and understand that you're working at cross purposes within yourself. You can't have a bunch of impulsivity and necessarily expect a positive outcome from it, in other words. And so somewhere inside, there's some mechanism inside you where you've made this choice, and you need to learn to rein that back in, right? So that you're not acting from that place, but acting from a place of consideration for others, for example. No, my spouse has made a dinner and I'm supposed to be home, but I'm going to be out with my friends. I'm going to go do that. I'm not going to call. I'm not going to do anything. I'm just not going to show up. And that person will be waiting and and they call, they text, whatever. You don't even respond. It's like you don't even see that person anymore in your life because you're too busy with your friends, right? Doing whatever it is you're doing there. And so again, is that type of impulsivity getting you where you need to go, or is it just simply causing you lots of complications in your life? Maybe you're somebody who's never on time for work. I was always somebody that was early, and so you'd sit there and you'd listen to and those of us that were like that we'd all just sit there and listen to the excuses after excuses. Well, it's like, well, the roads were slick. Well, then you leave earlier. I don't know. To me, it's very practical, but that lady couldn't figure it out. It's like, well, because she shows up like 45 minutes late. Well, but it's slick outside, so you leave earlier. I don't know. But anyway, that's that whole not understanding the bigger picture and dealing with your own issues. It just escapes you. And so to me, that's probably what this is. But at the same time, if we want to look at this in terms of the impact on a relationship, we can look at it that way too. And I mean, it likely has one anyway. So once you heal all that anyway with the Two of Cups, when you start to understand how one side of self is not working in conjunction very effectively with the other. The projective side is not doing what it should do, and the receptive side is just sitting there going, wait, you're not listening to me, right? You're not hearing the concerns I have. So because there's that internal dialogue, whether you want to pay attention to it or not, it's there. And so at the end of the day, once you resolve that, I think with the two, then you're able to create a new path for yourself. Now, generally speaking, the aces again are about the genesis of something in every suit. It's said to contain all of the energies of the entire suit within this one particular card. And so with Pentacles, again, that's the earth element. And so you're looking at the material side of things in your life, the physicality, so anything to do with your body. So in terms of health and all of that, that could be part of that. Your work, your home, your tradition, your culture, basically. And if your internal culture has been to go and do as you please, and you're in a relationship with somebody, or you have a job, or whatever is going on that's suffering from this, once you figure that out and you start to understand how your behavior does impact your life, and that choice is yours, it isn't a result of circumstances. Not if it's a pattern. I mean, occasionally something happens, sure, but otherwise, no. This is a pattern of behavior, I think. And once you understand that relationship and you figure it out, then you can make a different choice that's going to affect your whole life in in a way that's much more positive. It creates a new, here you're talking really material security. So maybe it preserves a relationship you have with a spouse or a partner. Maybe you now can preserve the relationship you have with your employer because you can actually get to your job on time instead of deciding to go off on a little adventure and, not even showing up, or showing up at noon or whenever, So what it will bring to you when you control the impulses is a better security for your life. And I'm keeping that general because it can apply to so many different things. I used to have a friend who wasn't a very good friend, and I finally figured that out. We would invite her to our house for dinner or to come over, or I wanted to come by there for some reason, and I said, "Will you be home?" "Well, I'm, yeah, unless I have something else to do." And that would be her response. My mother was the same way. And I'd listen to that. I'm like, what? What do you, no, you either want to do this or you don't. And you make the time, you schedule the time if you want to. It's not, you don't remain non-committal, but people that do that, it's like they can't seem to commit to one thing or another. And again, I have to wonder if a lack of impulse control is involved in that, because they don't want anything getting in the way of what they might on the spur of the moment want to do, right? So it could be something like that. But I think that here, when we're looking at, you've got 1, 2, and 2 is 4. There's a restructuring of your foundation. That's the numerology of the cards here. It's a restructuring of your foundation of how you, or maybe being more grounded. Maybe that's a better way to say that, instead of restructuring your foundation. That's kind of like, well, what is she talking about? Is she talking about building a new house or whatever? Well, in a sense, yes. It is. But being more grounded to reality, being more grounded to the impact your impulses have on someone else, or just on you. And in terms of how successful you are. If you are a contractor who can't get to the jobs on time, then maybe the person hiring you fires you, because it's like, you don't really seem all that interested in getting this work done. It was supposed to be done 2 weeks ago, but you can't seem to get here. So that's a real problem for people, especially for people who work independently like that. If people that have a lack of impulse control are going to struggle with that. They're going to lose clients, they're going to lose jobs, and the reputation that they have, you're not going to get any referrals, right? And so again, who controls that fate? Who controls the aspect of Perthrow? You do. And it can't be, you can't give it away to, this excuse, or blame that person, or this deal, or whatever. You plan your life so that you manage all of that. And someone with a lack of impulse control, that has too much poor energy, doesn't really know how to do that. And so again, they find themselves in an endless situation of, I can't get there. I can't be the person other people need me to be, or I can't even be the person I need me to be, because I've not realized this. It's like, I'm going to go and do this. And well, no, you have a job to go to today. You can't go do that. I'm going to stay up half the night, do it. And so I'm not awake at when I have to get up. I turn the alarm off and I go back to sleep. And so I'm late. It's one of these things where, again, if you can't see that within, it's never going to change. And it won't just impact you, it will impact other people. So this is kind of interesting. It's less, it's tangible, and yet it's not. This could be describing a situation between two people, in particular, a couple, where maybe the guy is, and it doesn't have to be that way. It could, it could be either way, but we'll just say, because he's stepping forward, we'll say the guy in the relationship, if you will, and again, it can be anything. Just someone who has a stronger personality could represent the guy, and it could be a woman. So that person needs to take the initiation, and the initiative, I should say. He initiates here. I'm getting caught up in that word. he needs to take that initiation to say, look, I'm sorry for what I did, and I understand, part of the two of cups is about understanding the bigger picture here. I understand how my behavior can compromise things, and I'm going to work really hard on that to make that not happen anymore. It could be something like that. But if it's not, if it's more internal, then you have to understand that you control your fate. How you see things, how you react to things controls your fate. You're not a victim of circumstance for much of the time. Sure, a hurricane comes in, destroys your home, you're a victim of circumstance. That's different. But the daily choices that people make about how to interact with their world, that's on them for the most part. And so much of the time we just want to blame everything and everyone, and so that we don't have to be responsible. But if we do that, then we don't have to fix it either, do we? So I think that's probably what this is about. And again, I mean, it could involve a specific situation you're dealing with, and you're either the one who's the recipient of this stuff, or you're the person doing it, but either way, even if it is a situation between you and somebody else, you still have to fix what's going on. And I really think that this has to come down to a reading for the inner self, basically, and examining how a lack of impulse control is really governing the choices that you make. That it's, I want to go do this and I don't want to be there. I don't value that. I don't see that as important. And maybe you never thought about it from that standpoint, because what's stopping you from getting back into the responsibility end of life, getting to the job on time, showing up when you're supposed to, being home when you're supposed to, people depending on you and you're not there. So if that's the kind of way that you want to live your life, then the path you're going to be taking is likely not going to be a very good one. And it could be a very lonely one, because how do you commit to someone else? How do you commit to a family situation? How do you commit to anything, really, if the impulse is the only thing that's driving you? So I guess that's it for a Monday. Oh gosh, I mean, to begin the new month this way, and and if you end up at a pagan fire festival, it's all about fertility, so you can let your imagination go there. So again, who controls your fate? Are you going to do it, or are you just going to pretend it's something else that's controlling it? It's not. It's really you, and you have to see it that way. It's got to begin there. And again, if it's outside circumstances that you truly, you got behind a car accident and the road is, no one can move, then get your phone out, call, and let people know, have that level of communication that you're willing to do. Don't just sit there and show up and explain later. It's like that. And I'll butcher this saying, but it has something to do with, I'd rather, apologize later than ask for permission first, or something like that. I'd rather ask for permission than have to apologize. In other words, I'd rather communicate what I need to do than apologize later for not doing it. You see what I'm saying? So again, and that's a real, and that whole dichotomy, that choice, that consideration really involves both Perthro and poor energy here, I think. Again, where do your impulses take you? Do they take you to a level of responsibility, or do they take you to a level of irresponsibility? You could look at it maybe that way. So anyway, thanks for watching. A heavy thing to think about maybe on a Monday. But, it's Monday. Got to get back into the swing of things. The weekend's over, right? So how are you going to do that? So I guess that's it. Everything went out on the blog over at Stepping Aside. The web address there is https, don't forget the S, colon, two forward slashes, www.imsteppingaside.com. If you forget that, click on more below the video and you'll see a box that opens up and you'll see the website address there. Go check that out if you like. And I've been doing that since 2012, and I'm actually pretty proud of what's happening with it right now. I don't know if you're into that sort of thing, maybe you'll like it. But I also write over on Substack, Medium, and Patreon. You can follow me on any of those places as well. Also, there's a bunch of, if you scroll down in that box you open, if you click on more, down at the bottom, there's a bunch of social media links and stuff where I'm at as well. So anyhow, thanks for coming by. If this is your first time, thank you so much. And if you've been here before, thank you for coming back. I hope you'll click subscribe if you haven't done that yet. And join us again on Thursday for another edition of As Above, So Below. Be good to yourself, be good to one another, and blessed be.